Thank you, Dan.
Yep.
Great to be with you all. I already feel like I am among co-creators, participants, and that I might not be saying much that feels like new information, but let's see what happens. I want to begin with a poem that some of you no doubt have heard before. It's by David Wagoner, and it is called Lost. Stand still. The trees ahead and bushes beside you are not lost. Where you are is called here, and you must treat it as a powerful stranger, must ask permission to know it and be known. The forest breathes. Listen. It answers, I have made this place around you. If you leave it, you may come back again saying, here. No two trees are the same to raven. No two branches are the same to wren. If what a tree or a bush does is lost on you, you are surely lost. Stand still. The forest knows where you are. You must let it find you. Welcome. Come in, come in. So from the event description, there's this great question that maybe drew you here tonight, I don't know. It says, rather than creating a connection to the sacred through a traditional religious system, is there something hidden within the ground beneath your feet that might open your engagement with life? Have you noticed that sometimes humans have a really hard time seeing what's right in front of us, or maybe what's right beneath our feet? The dominant system, which for the sake of tonight, I'll just call capitalism. This dominant system is a really loud one, but we know it's not the only one. It's sort of like in the summer, Midwesterners, East Coasters, you remember the cicadas. They're so loud. And if it's the only thing that you're paying attention to, it's deafening. But the cicadas aren't the only song that's being sung in your backyard at night. It's just the one that can get the most attention. And if we stand still, the way that David Wagoner has invited us, we start to hear the other songs that are also present in the backyard, in the trees that night. And so what I want us to be thinking about tonight is this practice of how we are hearing the other stories that are also true, even as this dominant one is in its last gasp. How can we, as co-creators with this earth home, dismantle, land the plane as gently as possible with care and love and cooperation so that we can hear what has always been true, the pulse that is here every minute, beating us and breathing us. So David Wagoner is, I would say, infused with reverence. And all of us know this kind of reverence, like when we walk into that giant fairy ring of redwoods, or when we lift the seashell to our ear and we hear the cosmos. Those moments to me are about reverence. And I want to invite us into that space now, just for a few minutes. You might think about a place that is your safe space, your awe-inspired space in the natural world. It could be a place that takes you way back to being 8 years old in the pond you used to swim in, or fireflies. It could be your backyard now where the bird feeders are. But I invite you to just begin to hold that space in your mind's eye, in your heart, in the ground beneath your feet. You can leave your eyes open or you can close them if it is more comfortable. But this series of questions I'm going to ask, there are 3, are questions that we are asking of reverence in this natural space. I'll give you just a moment to notice what the smells are in this space, what the air feels like on your cheeks, what the sounds are. And now, I'm going to ask reverence these 3 questions. I'm not going to ask you to share these with anyone, so this is really just for you. First question, what do you want me to receive? Don't overthink it. Just let reverence whisper the answer. What do you want me to receive? What do you want me to let go of? What do you want me to let go of? Last question. What do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? As you are sitting with these 3 answers, baked, half-baked, somewhere in between, that's fine, but I invite you to thank this space that has been a giver of some wisdom. Thank this natural setting that you know you can return to, if only in your mind and heart, whenever you wish, that this space is the ground beneath your feet. And as you're ready, you can come back here. One of the questions Dan asked in the description was also sort of what it could look like if we ground the soul's journey or sense of meaning making within the embrace of the natural world. And this is some of what I think it can look like when we ground meaning, when we look for signs and listen for wisdom and answers that come from the reverence that is all around us. In a more left brain sort of way, I think there's also something really useful in returning to some terms. So Dan said eco-spirituality. Okay, well, let's just go back to the basics for a second and say eco. What the heck is that? Eco, Greek, oikos. Anyone know what it means? Home. Home. Ego means home. And within this understanding of home, we can't really think about it without also thinking about relationship. So when we think about ecology, it's this study or understanding of the relationships of home, right? Or if we think about ecosystem, we're not just cataloging all of the things that are within this space, but we're actually looking at this complex system of how these relationships are interacting and working together, right? Economy, the management of home, and looking at how we organize the relationships of home. Notice there was no mention of money. How we organize the relationships of home has nothing to do with the gross domestic product. Nothing. We could organize our relationships with home in a way that measures wealth according to how healthy the soil is, or measures wealth in accordance to how well the frogs and the humans get along, right? So eco, home, relationship, that is at the core of what I think about when we start to widen the lens and talk about eco-spirituality. So spirit, the idea of life, animation, vitality, spirit, spirituality, sacredness, the sacredness of matter and relationships. So this is my religion, and I suspect yours too. Yeah, I see heads nodding. Eco-anxiety. Eco-anxiety could be the loss of relationship with our home. And that is pervasive right now. And finding our way back into relationship with our home is what our lives depend upon. And so I think that as an eco-chaplain, there are 3 practices that I'll just touch on briefly. And then maybe at that point we can kind of go into some deeper questions with Dan and such. But as an eco-chaplain, I would say that there are sort of 3 core practices that help me orient around this predicament in which we find ourselves, and also to really stay engaged and curious so that I don't just like check out and hide under a rock, which, you know, would be valid, but I'm choosing to not do that. First practice. This story that we're in, this cosmic origin story that every religion and every culture has done its best to try to explain, is a love story. 13.8 billion years of life, creating life. Even through decay and decomposition, life is manifesting, calling forth, creating, destroying, preserving. It is 13.8 billion years, and we have all been here for the entire time. So it is absolutely a love story. We're all protagonists. Even the bad guys are protagonists. And so it really calls us to be courageous and curious with one another. So, first practice, this is a love story. Second practice, we have to keep telling it like it is, because we forget that it's a love story. The dominant system loves to tell us that fear and scarcity and separation are the deal. We're stuck with it. You should just be very afraid, there's never enough, and you are different from all of them. And this equation is what we're trying to navigate. But that isn't the love story, right? The love story tells us that generosity is the way to be, that we aren't actually separate, that we are interdependent, we are interwoven, we are connected, and that there is an abundance. There's generous, there is ample, there is sufficient. It's a distribution problem, but there is enough here. And so in this second practice of begin again, we go back to reverence, We go back to that place where we say, oh yeah, right, love story, protagonist, okay. And then we can name the injustice as we see it. We can honor the lament that we feel. It's important that we do those things. And we can remember that as co-creators in this process, that we get to tell it like it is. That capitalism or white supremacy, or however we describe it, is not the only game in town. There's something older, there's something more ancient, and it's also new because we're in an expanding universe. So it's emerging and we're discovering it as we go. There's a lot of grace in that. Third practice of eco-chaplaincy, play. We're mammals, and mammals are incredibly playful and creative creatures. So even in that practice of lament and grief that I was describing, we get to write songs like the blues about what's breaking our heart. We get to paint murals about our sorrows and atrocities. We get to have entire rituals about endangered species because we create rituals and it feels good to come together and to manifest and use color and art and song and dance and drum to feel it and express it. We absolutely need to play and express ourselves in this time, and we are working against our screens, the temptation of Netflix, which is art, but we're not making the art. We're sitting on our butt watching the art, right? So, and I'm guilty of all of this. I'm right here with you in human form. But these are the invitations for us to really continue to use the beauty of our mammal self and to be embodied in this life. So I'm going to pause there now because I think I've put enough into the field that there's more for us to talk about. And does that feel good?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great.
All right. I don't know if applause is appropriate. But this is why I wanted Rowan to come tonight, obviously. So we're going to give you a little bit of a break to get up and refresh your glass or whatever you want, and then, I've got some questions of which Lauren's already answered a couple, which is fine. So I've got some questions that I want to ask her, and then we'll open it up for you all to ask questions as well, so that it gives some time for some feedback as well. I do think, I don't always approach it, I'm a little bit analytical. I don't approach these things, oftentimes my feelings, I approach it with my head. And just to have you up here kind of constructing a pathway that I can navigate with my heart feels different than the pathway I typically navigate with my head. And then with my head, I don't know about you, but when I navigate this space, I end up hitting a head wall, and then I can't go anywhere. But probably if I paid more attention to sort of the pulse in your heart as you navigate this space, I wonder if it would change the path or the journey. And so that's one thing that came up for me. So I'm going to give you a little break, get something to eat. I'll crank up the Bee Gees again.
Nice.
And then get back in your seats, and we'll start up with round 2. Sound good? Yeah. And really, if it all goes to crap from here on out, that first 30 minutes was worth the cost of admission. I mean, all right, let's come back to your seats.